Today I just wanted to base this reflection on a journal that I'm currently using and which is really good. The Daily Stoic Journal by Ryan Holiday and also Stephen Hanselman. But Ryan Holiday is a fellow who's written a couple of books based on Stoicism, essentially. The Obstacle is the Way and The Ego is the Enemy. And I haven't read the second, but the first I've read 2.5 times now in the last month, and it's just absolutely excellent. It's not perfect, but it's 95% brilliant, and I won't go into why I think it's not perfect, but it is really good. So I highly recommend that, and I've been using this book, and there's morning and evening reflections. So for example, at the start of the week there'll be a kind of thematic reflection, and then you'll have these questions to guide you. See if you can see that there. You have your morning reflection, your evening reflection, based on these different questions. You have to focus. So I'm just going to use this morning's reflection. It's quite a simple question. So I mean, if you're reading it as you're going along and you're reading other Stoic books or you're familiar with Stoicism, then these questions make a lot of sense in terms of questions and statements that you'll find in Stoicism. Challenging questions that get asked by Stoic philosophers in the context of the philosophy. So this simple question is, am I dragging my feet or am I doing my job as a human being? So that's embedded in a rich philosophical background of people like Plato and Aristotle and the Stoics, who partly think of human life in terms of functioning. But this is a very rich and deep sense of functioning, what that means. So I'm fulfilling a telos, a purpose, an end as a human being. I'm more like a plant than I realise. I'm an animal. We are beings who unfold in certain ways, who have a certain nature that unfolds. Now, part of the nature of a human being is also freedom. So our unfolding has a lot more creativity and spontaneity and possibility and chaos and evil and all these kinds of things involved in it. Like, it's a much more it's a very it is a free nature, and that's a very interesting thing in nature, to have consciousness and freedom. But nonetheless, we have a nature, and that's part of our nature, and we live that out. And so philosophers like Aristotle will talk about the purpose of a human being, the job as a human being, for example, to be virtuous or to be happy. And so I started to reflect in terms of that. Like, I've thought for a moment, what sense do I make about this for my life? And I'm sharing this because it might be, it's a good example of this exercise, and it can have some maybe general value. So I asked myself the question, what is my job as a human being? And then I wrote down a couple of things which I guess were inspired by having read ancient philosophy and applied it to my life for a long time. So I wrote down virtue, happiness and tranquility, as in peace. And then I paused for a sec, and happiness is a Aristotelian answer, the philosopher Aristotle. And I thought, hang on, no, the Stoic answer is better. So I wrote down virtue and tranquility. And I wrote that down because happiness, as I wrote down here in the reflection, is a great good in life. I think it's a great good. I think it's just there are some philosophies that kind of deny that or diminish it. But for crying out loud, if you know what despair is, if you know what depression and anxiety are, if you know what it is to be in angst and despair, then happiness is damn well a freaking fine good, and enables you to. Things are better at that level, and enables you to make things even better. That's like a positive upward spiral. Happiness should not be underestimated, but happiness is happenstance. It's something that's out of my control. So I do other things, and this is why I reduced the answer to virtue and tranquility, because it's through virtue, which I'll talk about more in a moment, and tranquility, finding some peace and finding virtue, developing virtue, that you have the possibility to be happy. But your job, the thing you do, I think, is to, in today's reflection, there's more. Life is big. It's not just complex, it's big. But one answer here I put was, the job of life is virtue, to create virtue, to cultivate virtue, and create some peace, because happiness is out of my control. And then I wrote virtue. What do I mean by that? And I wrote down, and this was, you don't have to overthink this stuff, or you don't have to be. You can just let stuff come out in your own reflection. So I wrote down strength, excellence, goodness, because I know that the word virtue, which is a Latin word, and then there's arete, the Greek word. They have broader meanings than what virtue sometimes means in English. Virtue has a number of meanings in English and often gets reduced to certain types. So it often gets reduced to goodness because of 2,000 years of Christianity. It's reduced to that more moral concept, but it actually has a broader meaning. So the broader meaning of virtue in ancient philosophy, and the broader meaning of virtue for anybody with a humanistic or stoic perspective like myself, is not simply goodness, but it's goodness, it's also strength, it's also excellence. And so then I wrote excellence, and I thought about how I'm exercising. I wrote strength. I wrote down strength. I thought, how am I exercising strength? How am I becoming stronger? And I thought about the fact I've been using Holliday's book, The Obstacle is the Way, which is a quote from Marcus Aurelius. The full quote that he takes is the impediment to action advances action. The obstacle is the way. So it's a way of hacking your problems in life, of flipping life around and using your obstacles precisely to become the new means to get where you want to go. So you sort of, an image used in Stoicism is that these problems that seem to impede the way actually become fuel that you put on the fire that you're burning, the fire of virtue, the fire of forward momentum, and the fire just consumes it. So it's like these things come up as impediments to stop it, and they just increase it. It's a profound, I don't have the right word, but a profound thing you can do with life. So I thought about that, and I've been applying that. In cases where some things I got very anxious about, and I was really drawing on that in that moment when I could have got sunk in the emotion, and I really not only pulled myself out of the emotion, it wasn't simply that, I did that, but turned it around into a strength and a forward momentum, and it got stronger precisely because I was becoming weaker. So yeah, and then I thought, okay, excellence. I thought about ways in which I've been striving to do my work better, and there's a whole range of ways. One was simply this week I was very tired at certain times, and so I've been very good at emotionally tired. I've become very good at, I'm becoming better at certain ways of dealing with emotional tiredness in myself when I'm in the counselling sessions, so that it doesn't stop me from doing a really good job, because it can. Okay, so I won't go into that, but I thought about how I've been doing that. And then goodness. Well, I thought around challenges this week for me of a few times where I was tempted to be expedient rather than truthful. And I came back to being truthful. And this is not just a celebration of, gee, didn't I do well, but it's actually a kind of, because this is all in process, it's all in progress. So I was like coming back to, okay, I'm recentering myself on, don't be expedient, be truthful. Don't say what's expedient, say what's honest and truthful. Even if the consequences frighten you, partly because I also believe ultimately the consequences of truth are better overall, ultimately, far, far, far better than the consequences of cowardly expediency or self-serving expediency. Last one, okay, so then I came back to tranquility or peace. I thought about how I'm engaging in that, and I thought, well, I've meditated a few more times this week. I use Zen Buddhist meditation. I'm not a Buddhist, but I've used it very much and very intensely in the past, and it makes just a massive difference for me. So I'm slowly doing that more and more, and I need to do that every day, and I need to do it, even a couple of times a day if I can. It changes my life when I do that stuff. So, okay, doing more of that. Then another aspect of tranquility is making your life work well. Doing all the things to make it work well and not putting stuff off. And I've thought about that in certain ways in which I'm making my life more functional, and that's creating some stress, again, or anxiety, as I'm sort of, trying to pull things together and make things happen and waiting on responses from things. But it's worth the effort. And then last of all, I thought about, in terms of tranquility, beauty. Well, I dedicate a lot of time to cultivating beauty. Sitting on this porch right now, doing this, looking over this beautiful place, and cultivating the inward state of aliveness to it. The traffic isn't as beautiful, but I haven't got much to complain about when I've got great motorbikes riding past and I'm looking over bush, not other houses. So I'm on a highway leading down to Avoca. So I guess this reflection is just about how I used this book, and it's really opens you up to what's rich in your life. It brings you back to what matters, and it's a prompt to guide you more to what matters. So it's great to use a book like this, but also coming back to this point, what is my job as a human being? Well, I think it's virtue, which is strength, excellence, goodness. It's the cultivation of those. So it's the cultivation of virtue, and it's the cultivation of tranquility, which is recognizing what's in my control and what's out of my control, and then focusing on the things that are in my control, creating a functional life. Creating more beauty and engaging with beauty, engaging with friendship and connection, taking the little leaps of courage and making the efforts to make that happen when I'm tempted just to sort of sink back down into some kind of inertia which just turns things to shit. So there you go.